I'm stuck in a situation that feels impossible to handle. At 26, I went from being completely independent to relying on others for basic daily tasks. Being blind means I have to trust what people tell me, but I keep second-guessing everyone's intentions. My parents say one thing, my fiancé says another, and my gut feeling tells me something else entirely. The worst part is not being able to verify anything myself. I need help figuring out who's actually looking out for me and who might be taking advantage of my condition. A few days ago, my cousin Megan told me something that could completely destroy my relationship. She's been my primary caregiver since the accident 6 months ago, helping me with everything from getting dressed to making meals. The accident was brutal. I was driving home from work when a delivery truck ran a red light and slammed into my car. The doctors kept me in the hospital for 3 months, running test after test. My vision got worse each week until everything went completely dark. My family visits often, but Megan is the only one who's been there consistently, day in and day out. This blindness has completely changed who I am. Before the accident, I had a great job, my own apartment, and was planning my wedding. Now I can barely walk around my own home without bumping into furniture. The thing that scares me most is losing Derek, my fiancé. We've been together since college, and while he's got his issues, I've always believed in him. He struggled with keeping jobs throughout his 20s, usually quitting after a few months because he'd get bored or clash with his bosses. His parents always enabled this behavior by paying his bills, which didn't help him grow up. I only agreed to marry Derek after he showed some real progress in his life. He finally landed a steady job at an insurance company and managed to keep it for over a year, which was huge for him. His mom wasn't happy about this. She wanted him to take over their family business, a small convenience store that's been struggling for years. But Derek wanted to prove he could make it on his own. I thought he was finally becoming the responsible person I always knew he could be. My parents weren't convinced though, especially my dad who wanted me to date his business partner's son instead. I tried breaking up with Derek after my diagnosis became permanent. I figured he wouldn't want to deal with a blind wife, especially since he was just getting his life together. But he completely refused to leave. He kept insisting that he'd spent years becoming a better person for me and wasn't going to give up now. My dad even offered to buy him out of the relationship, a fact I only learned about later from my mom. Derek turned down the money, which honestly surprised everyone since he'd always been motivated by financial gain before. The hospital stay was terrible. I spent weeks feeling sorry for myself, convinced my life was over. I couldn't even check my phone or watch TV to pass the time. The only thing that kept me going was Derek's daily visits. He'd bring me audiobooks, tell me about his day at work, and help me practice using my other senses. The nurses kept telling me how lucky I was to have such a devoted fiancé. My mom was skeptical though. She noticed he only visited during hours when other people were around, never early mornings or late nights when I really needed support. After 3 months in the hospital, my parents wanted me to move to their house in Vermont. They have this huge place with a guest house where I could stay. Derek immediately shot that idea down. He convinced everyone it would be better for my recovery to stay in familiar surroundings. That's when my parents suggested Megan move in with us. She's my mom's sister's daughter and has been a professional caregiver for 10 years. The arrangement worked well at first. Megan handled my medical needs, Derek went to work, and I started learning how to work on things while being blind. I even began working with a specialist who teaches blind people how to use computers. My sister Alice helped with the wedding plans. She's younger than me by 2 years and has always been the more outgoing one. While I was focused on my career, she was the social butterfly who knew everyone. Having her around made things feel more normal. The wedding planning gave me something to focus on besides my disability. Megan kept her distance during these planning sessions. She's very professional about her role as my caregiver, probably because she's been doing this job since she was 18. Her mother got sick when Megan was young, so she learned early how to take care of people. Unlike Alice who shares all the latest gossip, Megan only speaks when spoken to. One morning while helping me get dressed, Megan said she needed to tell me something important. This was unusual for her since she typically keeps conversations focused on my care. She mentioned that in her 10 years as a caregiver, she's worked with over 20 families and developed a sense for spotting relationship problems. Last year, she even helped one of her elderly clients discover that his son was stealing money from his accounts. She said she couldn't keep quiet about what she'd been noticing in my house, especially since we're family. After about 5 minutes of her talking in circles, I asked her to get to the point. That's when she told me that she thought Derek and Alice were having an affair. I made her repeat it twice because I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My sister and my fiancé? The fiancé who turned down my father's money to stick by me after the accident? It seemed impossible. When I pressed her for proof, Megan admitted she didn't have anything concrete. She described how they'd brush against each other unnecessarily when passing in the hallway, or how Derek would touch Alice's lower back when helping her reach things in the kitchen. Apparently, they'd gotten bold enough to do this even when I was in the room, probably thinking my blindness made me completely oblivious. Megan also mentioned hearing them whispering and laughing late at night when they thought everyone was asleep. She reminded me about last week when they both disappeared for 2 hours, claiming they were getting supplies for the wedding. I wanted to completely dismiss what Megan was saying. Derek has his faults. He's terrible with money, still plays video games like a teenager, and can't keep his car clean to save his life. But cheating? With my sister? This is the same guy who spent 3 years saving up for my engagement ring when he could have easily asked his parents for money, and the guy who sat through every single doctor's appointment after my accident. Plus, Alice and I have always been incredibly close. We shared everything growing up, from clothes to boyfriend's secrets. The idea of them betraying me seems completely insane. Now I can't stop analyzing every interaction between Derek and Alice from the past 4 years. They started getting close during my parents' 25th anniversary party, where Derek helped Alice with her catering business. After that, they'd often grab lunch together when Derek was working near her office. I always thought it was nice that they got along so well. But now I'm wondering if there were signs I missed. Like the time Derek insisted on driving Alice home after my engagement party because she'd had too much to drink, but they didn't get back until 3 hours later. Or how Alice suddenly started showing up at our house most mornings, claiming she wanted to help me get ready for the day. Maybe Megan is wrong about all of this. She's only known them for 6 months, while I've known Alice my whole life. My sister was there when I had my first heartbreak at 16, and she's the one who actually introduced me to Derek at her college graduation party. Plus, Megan comes from a family with a lot of relationship drama. Her own sister lost her husband to her best friend, so maybe she's projecting those experiences onto my situation. But then again, Megan has spent more time around them these past months than I have, considering I'm usually resting or at therapy appointments. Derek and Alice have both sacrificed a lot to help me after the accident. Derek took a pay cut to switch to a job with more flexible hours so he could drive me to appointments. Alice put her catering business on hold to spend more time helping with my recovery. These don't seem like the actions of people who would betray me. Still, I can't ignore how Derek's behavior has changed lately. He doesn't hold my hand as much, and when he kisses me, it feels rushed. I initially blamed it on him being tired from taking care of me, but maybe there's more to it. The thought of confronting them makes me physically ill. I'm totally dependent on them right now. Derek handles all our finances and Alice manages my medical appointments when Megan isn't around. My parents live 3 hours away, and my closest friends moved to different states after college. Being blind is isolating enough without pushing away the two people I rely on most. Plus, our families are so intertwined now. Derek's mom already bought her mother of the groom dress, and Alice is handling all the wedding vendors through her catering connections. I've posted about my situation on a support forum for visually impaired people, hoping someone there might have dealt with something similar. Update number 1, 2 weeks later. It's been 2 weeks since I last posted and updated. Sorry for any typos. I'm using a text-to-speech program to write these posts, but it's not perfect. My friend Samuel from my support group recommended a proofreader who specializes in helping blind clients, so my post should be clearer now. The proofreader also happens to be friends with my eye doctor, which became relevant later. These past weeks have been a nightmare of paranoia and confusion. Every interaction between Derek and Alice feels suspicious now. Last Tuesday, I heard them laughing in the kitchen, but they went completely silent when I walked in. Yesterday, Derek took 20 minutes to answer when I asked about his work day, and Alice changed the subject entirely. They used to be so quick with their responses before the accident. Now everything feels calculated, like they're checking with each other before speaking. When I mentioned this, Derek said I was being paranoid and that they're just being more thoughtful with their words since my accident. This explanation might make sense if they didn't speak normally when they think I'm sleeping. Megan has been my eyes in this situation, literally and figuratively. She's watching them whenever she can, but it's tricky since she has to help me with basically everything. She takes me to physical therapy 3 times a week, helps me shower, and assists with my exercises. The only time she's not with me is when I'm sleeping or when Derek insists on helping me instead. She said she caught them having a heated whispered argument in the garage last week, but they claimed they were discussing wedding centerpieces. The weird part is that we already finalized the centerpiece design last month. During my last checkup, my drive mentioned something interesting. The damage to my eyes isn't as permanent as they initially thought. There's a surgical procedure that could restore about 75% of my vision. But it's extremely risky. I could end up with severe complications, possibly affecting my entire nervous system. The surgery would involve multiple procedures over several weeks, with a 40% chance of success. He left the decision up to me, but Megan thinks this might be my chance to regain my vision. When my doctor first mentioned the surgery option, I immediately said no. I'd spent 3 months in the hospital after the accident, dealing with countless tests and procedures. The constant beeping of machines, the endless rounds of medications, and the rotating shifts of nurses had driven me almost crazy. My hospital room became my entire world. I couldn't even go to the bathroom without assistance. My hair started falling out from stress, and I developed anxiety attacks whenever I heard medical equipment rolling down the hallway. The thought of going through all that again, with only a 40% chance of success, seemed insane. But lately, Megan's been showing me testimonials from patients who've had similar procedures. We've been researching everything: the surgeon's background, possible complications, recovery time, and even insurance coverage. The surgery would cost nearly $200,000, but my accident insurance would cover 80% of it. Derek's been pushing me to save that insurance money for our future house, which feels odd since he used to encourage me to try every possible treatment. My older brother, who's a pharmacist, looked into the medication regime I'd need and says it's actually less intense than my previous treatments. The idea of surprising Derek at our wedding by being able to see him at the altar keeps playing in my head. But Megan's more focused on using this as a way to confirm her suspicions about him and Alice. The surgery would require at least 6 weeks of recovery, which means I'd be back home about 3 weeks before the wedding. That's assuming everything goes perfectly and there are no complications. I feel kinda guilty about potentially using a medical procedure as a trap. What if I go through all this trauma and pain only to find out I was wrong about everything? My therapist says I need to be sure about my motivations. Am I doing this for myself or just to catch them? Please, can you guys give me an advice on what should I do going forward? Update number 2, 3 months later. 3 months have passed, and I went through with the surgery. After weeks of research and conversations with former patients, I decided to take the risk. The preparation was intense. I had to stop certain medications, go through multiple pre-surgery screenings, and even had to gain some weight because the doctors said recovery would be easier if I wasn't underweight. I spent 5 days in pre-op procedures before they could even start the main surgery. I told everyone I was attending a specialized Braille learning program in Boston. Derek and Alice immediately suggested that Megan should go back to her family during this time to save money. According to them, paying her full salary while I was away made no sense. I tried arguing that she could help maintain the house, but they were persistent. They even called my parents to back them up, claiming Megan deserved a break. My mom agreed, saying it would give Derek and Alice time to finalize wedding preparations. The whole situation felt convenient for them, but I couldn't say anything without revealing my real plans. Megan found an apartment near the hospital where I had my surgery. She split her time between visiting me and picking up shifts at a local nursing home to cover her expenses. The surgery itself went better than expected, but recovery was brutal. I spent 4 weeks dealing with severe headaches and light sensitivity. The doctors had to keep adjusting my medication because my body kept rejecting the initial prescriptions. Through it all, Megan was there, helping me practice eye exercises and reading me updates from my medical charts. During those hospital nights, Megan told me about her childhood. While I was getting piano lessons and going to summer camps, she was working at a diner at age 14 to help pay her mom's medical bills. Her father left when she was young, and her mother developed MS soon after. She never got to finish college because she had to work full-time as a caregiver. Meanwhile, my biggest concern in my early 20s was whether to accept my dad's offer to work at his firm or pursue my own career path. My privilege became pretty obvious during these conversations. The month in the hospital changed my perspective completely. Before the accident, my life revolved around wedding planning and trying to turn Derek into husband material. I had this perfect vision of our future, a house in the suburbs, 2 kids, and weekend barbecues with friends. Now I was lying in a hospital bed, terrified about what I might discover when I could see again. I started thinking about what I actually wanted from life. Maybe I could use my insurance money to start my own business instead of saving it for a house with Derek. I could travel, go back to school. The accident forced me to see that I've been living someone else's version of a perfect life. Update number 3, 1 month later. It's been a month since my last update, and the surgery was successful. I now have 75% of my vision back. The doctors say this is better than they expected. Colors are still a bit blurry, and I need special glasses for light sensitivity, but it's incredible compared to complete darkness. Back at home, I've been pretending I'm still blind. The glasses help sell the story since I need to wear them anyway. Megan moved back in, and we've fallen back into our old routine, except now I can actually see what's happening around me. These past few weeks have been emotionally exhausting. There have been at least 10 times when I wanted to scream out that I could see everything. Like when Derek canceled our weekly date night claiming he had to work late, but I saw him drive off with Alice instead. Or when they spent 3 hours organizing wedding favors in the basement while I was supposedly napping. I kept quiet because I needed to understand the full extent of their betrayal. More than that, I needed to know why Derek was still going through with the wedding. Was it guilt? Pity? Or maybe it had something to do with my insurance settlement coming up next month. Yesterday, I finally got the proof I needed, though I wish I hadn't. I was sitting in the living room while they were in the kitchen, supposedly discussing the wedding menu. Through the reflection in our glass cabinet, I watched their entire interaction. Alice was leaning against the counter while Derek made coffee. They were speaking in whispers, then she kissed his cheek. Instead of pulling away, he turned and kissed her on the lips. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped my phone. 4 years of trust and love, destroyed in 10 seconds. The worst part was watching them straighten their clothes and act normal when they came back to the living room, asking if I wanted coffee. After witnessing that, I called Megan pretending I needed help with a wedding errand. When Derek and Alice asked what was wrong, I made up a story about needing to buy something from the bridal shop. The way they looked at each other when I mentioned the wedding, like they were sharing some secret joke at my expense, made me want to throw up. Instead, I smiled and talked about how excited I was to move forward with the wedding plans. Derek actually had the nerve to reach over and squeeze my hand, saying he couldn't wait to marry me. Derek's reaction to pushing forward with the wedding plans made everything click. Instead of looking trapped or guilty, he seemed almost eager. He and Alice shared this knowing look, and he actually grinned. That's when I remembered the conversation with my insurance agent last month. There's a $800,000 payout coming at the end of the year, mainly to cover future medical expenses and lost wages from my job. If we're married when that payment comes through, Derek would have legal access to those funds. The timing of the wedding suddenly made perfect sense. It's scheduled exactly 8 weeks before the final insurance settlement. The accident payout has been coming in smaller amounts until now, $5,000 here, $10,000 there for medical bills and rehabilitation. But the big payment was always scheduled for December. Derek's been unusually interested in my insurance paperwork lately, always offering to handle calls with the agents. He even suggested I switch to his cousin's law firm for handling the settlement, which I now realize would have given him even more control over the money. Last week, I overheard him on the phone with a real estate agent about a beachfront property, something we definitely couldn't afford on his salary alone. His behavior since the accident makes so much more sense now. He stopped holding my hand during movies, no more surprise hugs from behind, none of those little affectionate gestures he used to do all the time. He claims it's because he's afraid of hurting me, but I've seen how gentle he can be with Alice. Just yesterday, he helped her try on her bridesmaid dress. Meanwhile, he won't even sit next to me on the couch anymore. I checked our joint account statement. He's been taking Alice to expensive restaurants while telling me he's working late. I've decided to throw a pre-wedding party next week. Already sent out invitations to everyone, Derek's entire family, all our college friends, my coworkers, even his boss who he hates. Alice is helping plan it, thinking it's just another bridal shower. She even convinced our parents to fly in early for it. The venue is booked, the catering is ordered, not through her company, which raised some eyebrows, and I've prepared a very special slideshow for the occasion. Megan's been helping me gather evidence, photos, bank statements, text messages she managed to screenshot from Derek's phone when he left it charging. They think they're so clever, but they have no idea what's coming. Final update, 4 days later, the wedding is officially cancelled. Last night, I ended my engagement in front of 60 guests at what was supposed to be our pre-wedding celebration. Everyone was there, Derek's family, my college roommates, our colleagues, even my old neighbors. The party started normally enough. People were drinking champagne, eating appetizers, congratulating us on the upcoming wedding. Derek's mom kept showing everyone photos of the beach house she wanted us to buy near them. Alice was playing the perfect maid of honor, making sure everyone's glasses stayed full. I waited until everyone had finished dinner before making my announcement. When I took off my glasses and told everyone I could see, the room exploded with excitement. My mom started crying. Derek's dad was calling it a miracle. But Derek and Alice? They looked like they'd seen a ghost. Derek kept opening and closing his mouth like a goldfish, while Alice suddenly found her shoes extremely interesting. It was the first time in weeks I'd seen them maintain proper distance from each other. Then came the questions about when and how this happened. I explained everything, the risky surgery 3 months ago, the recovery period in Boston, the doctors who gave me a 40% chance of success. Megan, playing her part perfectly, asked why I hadn't saved this for the wedding day. That's when I turned to Derek and Alice and told them this was my wedding gift to them. I started listing specific dates and times. The afternoon they spent in the pool house while I was supposedly at physical therapy. Their late night meeting in his car last week. The kisses they thought no one could see. With each detail, Alice's face got paler and Derek's hands started shaking. When Alice tried to deny it, I described the birthmark on her lower back that Derek had been touching in the kitchen 3 days ago. That shut her up pretty quickly. Derek actually tried to turn this around on me. He stood up in front of everyone and said I was the dishonest one for lying about the surgery. My own father had to hold me back when Derek claimed my trust issues had ruined our relationship. That's when I pulled out the folder Megan had helped me prepare. Inside were printouts of his recent credit card statements showing hotel charges, screenshots of his browsing history looking up divorce lawyers, and a copy of his email to his cousin about accessing my insurance settlement after the wedding. The final insurance payment would be $800,000, enough for him and Alice to start their new life together. My mom started screaming at him in both English and Korean. His parents looked mortified, especially when I mentioned how they'd helped him check into marriage laws regarding disability benefits. Derek's sister actually started crying, saying she'd caught them together but didn't know how to tell me. Meanwhile, Alice kept trying to approach me, blubbering about how it just happened and how they never meant to hurt me. I told her to save her fake tears for her next catering gig. After 30 minutes of complete mayhem, with people taking sides and others trying to calm everything down, I'd had enough. I told Derek he had 24 hours to get his things out of my house. He tried arguing about his name being on the lease, but I reminded him that my parents had paid every rent check for the past year. My dad's already called his lawyer to handle the paperwork. Alice tried following me as I left, but Megan blocked her path. Last I heard, she's staying at a motel because our parents won't let her come home. I've been in my room since last night, ignoring the dozens of messages flooding my phone. My college friends want to take me on a trip to forget everything. Derek's mom keeps calling to apologize. But right now, I just need space. The only person I'm talking to is Megan, who's been bringing me food and helping me sort through what's left of my relationship. The pain comes in waves. 1 minute I'm relieved it's over, the next I'm looking at old photos wondering if they were together even then. But mostly, I feel stupid for not seeing the signs earlier. My mom warned me about Derek's pattern of living off others, first his parents, then me. He hasn't held a steady job since college, always claiming he was finding himself while I paid our bills. The accident insurance was probably the biggest payday he'd ever seen. At least I found out before signing those marriage papers. Some betrayals you can forgive, but this isn't one of them. Our parents keep pushing for reconciliation, saying families should stick together, but as far as I'm concerned, I only have one family member I can trust now, Megan.